I just read over your consultation form. You guys got a Samoyed.
This is Keleigh.
Okay.
She's a little hectic because my parents are here watching our kid right now, and she wants to play with them.
No worries. I think. Here. Okay, 1 second. I think your wife is here now.
Great.
Hello.
Hi.
How are you?
Good. How are you doing?
Doing good. I just told your husband Stuart, but just so you know as well, we put on the consultation form. We put it on the website, but we start recording consultations, training sessions, and Zoom sessions. Okay.
Yep.
So we had literally just started. Samoyed, having issues at the daycare. Did puppy training with another trainer in the area.
Yep.
But her behavior is like, at least to the daycare's, aggressive or like too assertive. It sounds like.
Yeah. So I would say like she's so good. She's so sweet with people. And like as a puppy, I wouldn't say she was aggressive with other dogs. I would say she was more aloof. Like she would kind of do her own thing. And then there were certain dogs that she'd really click with that she'd actually play with. But we didn't see that often. But the daycare has been reporting over the last like 4 to 6 months an increase in like subtle aggression. So I don't think that she would actually like attack another dog, but she like does stuff that could instigate a fight.
Sure.
Like stalking dogs and not paying attention to social cues when they tell her not to do it.
Yeah.
Showing your teeth, growling. And up until 4 to 6 months ago, like the first 2.5 years of her life, like that's not something that we observed or we really heard about with her.
Mm-hmm.
We noticed the aloofness, but the aggression seems to be something that's picked up, and I don't know why.
She's always been, since we got her, a sweet dog, but a difficult dog. Like she's been very nervous about us being outside of the house without her. That's never been something that's been easy. Like she's always been apprehensive, as Jory said, to like at the dog park. She's not one of the dogs that'll interact with the other dogs that easily.
Yeah, so I think with Stuart is she's always been neurotic. Her personality has always been neurotic. Like when we brought her home, she was anxious about things as basic as being held or like riding in the car. Like she would be hysterical. Like she's come a long way with that stuff, but like she still has significant anxiety in certain scenarios. Like she's a more anxious personality, period, across the board. We had been making some progress with like leaving her at home before we welcomed our son. But now that we have our son, like it seems to have gotten way worse. Like we can't put her in a crate because she'll poop in the crate. Like we can't put her in a soft crate because she'll eat through it. And if we just leave her out, she'll like destroy stuff. So it's just like, she's anxious being home alone. When we take her to the kennel, she's developing this new aggression with other animals. And it's just like, how do we work through this so that we can give her the best life possible and can kind of work with our family? So it's just getting a little bit nerve-wracking because it seems to be a pattern that's getting worse at this point.
How old is she?
She's 3. Okay. 3 in a month or 2.
And then you just had that one trainer?
Yeah, so when she was a puppy, like before she was even 6 months old, she went to Canine Sports and did like a 2 or 3 week live-in intensive training session. And like that trainer, as well as the trainers at Rockstar, seem to think that she's a smart dog and they like to use her to train other dogs. And she seems to like enjoy that, but there's this aggression problem with other dogs developing.
I'm also going to add a little color. Like I think she's a very smart dog. I've had dogs my whole life. She's probably one of the smartest that I've had. And she does better when she gets a lot of attention from us. In her first 2 years of her life, first year and a half, she got a lot of attention from us. It's not like she's not getting as much attention, like, but we have other priorities with our kids. So like we don't have time to do 90-minute sessions of throwing a ball back and forth at the park with her. Like that stuff's a little shorter than it used to be. but she does get along really, really, really nicely with our son.
Anything else?
I mean, I think those are the biggest thing that I could think of. Rockstar offered to talk to you at some point if that's helpful, and just share kind of the observations of like stalking young dogs and some of the missed social cues and stuff.
Just generally, she's like, I've had golden retrievers. This is our second Samoyed, and she's just more skittish and nervous than any other dog I've ever had. But she's also a sweetheart more so than other dogs. So we want to make sure it works out with her, because she gets along well with all the people in our life, just not all the dogs in her life.
Sure. Okay. Anything else?
I think those are the biggest things.
Okay. So what you're dealing with is not out the ordinary. Okay. I don't need to hear from Rockstar.
Okay.
Because the part of the problem is there's no structure. Okay. And there's other things too, but structure to a dog and structure to a human is different. Usually when people think structure with their dog, they're thinking, well, I walk my dog 3 times a day. I play ball with them for 90 minutes. I feed them in the morning and the evening, right? I make sure we get cuddle time. That's a structure to a human for a dog.
Yep.
Structure amongst dogs is, if you get too close to me, I'm going to bite you. Okay. If you get close to me while I'm eating my food, I'm going to growl at you to warn you. And if you get too close, I'm going to bite you. Okay. If they're in a room with a bunch of dogs and they're getting kind of, they need some space, they go in the corner. And then if dogs approach, they growl, they show teeth, and go, if you get any closer, I'm going to bite you. Okay? That's dog structure. And that's the problem is, one, most daycares do not structure their play. Most daycares are a lot of free-for-all. Okay. And in our daycare, we get dogs like that. But we don't get any escalations because we don't allow them to get there. If we see a dog tuck away in a corner, we already know is you're done, pull you out. Okay. Or if we see play getting too rough or too agitated, we break it up. We don't let it go past 4 to 5, because 6 and up is where dog fights happen, right? Where it starts as fun and play, and they're nipping and biting and pulling each other, and then one dog pulls too hard, and next thing you know, it blows up. Right? Most daycares don't do that. And we get a lot of dogs that have come from other daycares, and the owners have said dogs would come home stressed. The dogs would come home with nicks and bleeding and all that stuff, because it was just too much. And here, because we regulate everything, the dogs don't come home stressed, because if we see that they're getting tired, if we're seeing that they need space, if we're seeing they're getting agitated, we stop whatever's going on, and then we pull the dog out if needed, and we let them decompress in the cage or in the kennel.
Saying now that, I just want to add one more detail. She comes home tired. I'm assuming like she's just physically tired, but I don't know if it's mentally tired. And she's never been in a physical fight as far as we know. But I guess it's gotten too close for comfort.
Yeah, but the thing is, if someone is telling me that my dog is displaying these behaviors and it's concerning, it tells me they don't know what they're doing. Because if we see it here, I just said we address it.
Yep.
That's the thing, right? I'm sure she comes home tired from play and stuff, but it's different because there's the mental component and then there's the physical component, right? Physical is run. But what can happen for some dogs, because every dog is different, is they come home overstimulated because there's no off switch.
Yep.
It's just constant stimulation, right? What creates off switch is structure, is different things throughout the day. So like, we don't just do play. There's play, there's kennel time to decompress, there's treadmill time for focused exercise. And then if the dog has been trained by us, we do also duration work, which is sit here and don't move for 2 hours, because that's mental exercise. Because they see dogs training, they see dogs playing, they see puppies playing, they see dogs in transport, moving back and forth between doors, and they're sitting there. And if they like bark or something, we correct them, because we don't allow that here. I run as quiet of a kennel as I possibly can. And dogs bark because they're playing, whatever, we get that. But it's really quiet. Like if you watch a training video, you'll hear dogs in the background. But compared to how many dogs are actually present, it's quiet, right? So the behavior stuff, that I read from the other daycares, because there was a camp, and then there was like a kind of like a forest thing, and then there was, you know, the rock star pets and stuff. Is, again, if people knew what they were doing, the behaviors that she's displaying are normal. Okay, and I'm not saying that they're not problematic, but they could become problematic because no one's actively doing anything about it outside of you guys, right? Because obviously we're
Can
here.
I add one more thing? She used to go to I don't know if you know of different daycares in the area. She used to go to the barking lot in Deerfield, which was closer to my office. She thrived there, and sadly they closed during the pandemic, but we never had these issues when she was there.
Yeah. And was that her first daycare?
Yeah.
That could be why. Because so we have a dog that comes here who came from Canine University. And at Canine University, he was very social. Here, he's more mopey. Okay. And it's because he had been going to Canine since he was born. You know, not obviously not since he was born, but like since they got him, they were sending him to Canine. So that was his most comfortable. And then he comes here, and Canine's a free for all. He comes here, now there's structure involved, right? So now he's like, oh shit, well, now I can't just do whatever I want all the time, you know? So that can be a potential, that because that was her first place, that was where she was at her most comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
And now that it's been to other places, she's not as comfortable. And then it could also be that she's maturing. And this is typically stuff that would show up around a year. But it can be the change in environments, because it's not her comfort zone. It's different.
Yeah.
Okay. And again, that's my assumption, but that's why I asked if barking lot was her first daycare, because I've seen that before.
Yeah. She started there like really early.
Yeah.
And she went up there until
that's a track. They actually contacted me to take that space.
Yeah, when I used to commute, it was close to my office, but I just like a lot of people were working from home right now, and
sure,
I felt terrible because they did such a good job, but the demand for those things in the suburbs just isn't what it used to be.
Yeah. So I'm assuming before reaching out, you did some research on how I train and what I use to train, my methods and all that.
Yeah, she has a dog collar from Canine Sports. She has the dog truck collar, and we did use it. We fell off the horse. We did use it initially when she came home from training, but we stopped using it. And so we may have contributed somewhat to not keeping up with her training.
We stopped being as good on top of things when our son was born. So that was July 2019.
Okay. So it's been,
and we are comfortable with it, and she did seem to do well with it.
What model is she on?
It's in the drawer.
I'd need to go look. But
I know we have that back somewhere. It's like a Dogtra. I don't know. There's like a control where you can shock her with it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but so we are familiar with those, and like that doesn't bother us. Like we've shocked ourselves with it, and we understand how it works.
Sure. The only reason why I asked what the model is just to make sure it's appropriate to her size.
Yeah, that could be an issue because she got it when she was young, and she's gotten bigger since then.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And have you tried re-implementing what you learned?
No.
Okay.
I mean, not really. I mean, she underwent that training in 2018. And we've been inconsistent with the collar for a long time now.
Okay. And that's with Emily Stoddard, is that correct?
Emily Stoddard and Natalie Ridgeway. Yeah.
Why not review with her?
We didn't review with her because we were specifically concerned about, I mean, the obedience is a little bit of an issue. She's willful, and I mean, you know, she doesn't behave especially well in a kennel, and like there's the issues there, but like the aggression and anxiety in particular was an issue. And so when I was researching, your name came up as somebody who had a lot of experience with a fear-based aggression toward other animals.
She also used to panic about going over to. We really like Natalie. She's worked with 2 of our dogs, but this Keleigh, unlike our first dog, panicked every time that we were going to take her there, and I'm sure it was because she didn't like doing the training regimen, but it seemed to be a major source of stress for her.
Okay. Have you ever seen that same type of behavior taken anywhere else?
She gets skittish when we go somewhere that she's not familiar with.
Yeah.
But she's
No,
never
I-
she's never gotten like repeat skittish once like she's familiar going somewhere. Like the first time we did the car ride to Rockstar, like she freaked out. Like by the 5th time, she was calm as can be when we
Yeah.
went there.
She loves going to the vet. She loves going to any other dog place we take her.
Yeah.
It could be when you're taking her there to Emily, just because she's using remote collar. It's like, you know, she's going to discipline school, right? She's going to boot camp. So
Possible, although it's weird. Like she seemed to really like Natalie, but she would react differently to Emily. So I don't know if Emily was firmer with her or what the deal is, but I definitely noticed there was a reaction.
which is a possibility. I'm familiar with Emily. I don't know her personally, but I know people who know her. And the thing about stuff like that is like whenever I show up, a lot of times dogs will just kind of like, oh, Jesse's here, right? Because the hour that I spend with them once a week is I'm a disciplinarian, right? All the hard stuff is done when I'm present. So the dogs just go like, shit, that guy is here again, right? So it doesn't strike me as odd.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it could be the good cop, bad cop kind of scenario going on. But so for me, what you're dealing with is simple. Is no one is telling her no, essentially. And I know you said like you kind of fell off because you had your child, and I understand that. But you can always still tell the dog no. That doesn't require any kind of training. That just requires a consequence. Because like dogs are very simple animals. Humans make things complicated. And intelligence has nothing to do with behavior. How sweet your dog is, all the other times of the day or whatever, has nothing to do with the issues that you're seeing. Because I think that people are like, oh, my dog is sweet 99% of the time, except for this. But I'll go, yeah, but 9 out of 10 times when your dog sees another dog, they're lunging and barking. So within that context, your dog is 90% reactive, right? But they look at everything as a whole. I'm like, no, you got to narrow that view and look at how much your dog has a problem in that context.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, definitely know there's a component of us here that we need to, once we rehabilitate her, we need to be firm and consistent moving forward about making sure we don't go back to where we are now.
Yeah. So when it comes to this stuff, I think I remember reading, I think Stewart had noted her growling at dogs in passing. Is that correct?
Yep.
Yeah, that's something she didn't used to do, and now it's not like it happens a lot, but it definitely happens enough that it's just weird because it's a new behavior. And a lot of times dogs will growl at her. It's like she gives off a weird vibe to other dogs.
Right, because of her energy, most likely. Is she on a harness?
Yeah.
She's on, I'll show you, like this kind of blue collar. Yeah, I guess it's a harness.
Okay. Because that's part of the problem.
Okay.
Harnesses promote agitation and aggressive type behaviors.
Okay.
Okay. So dogs have a thing called opposition reflex, which means when they feel pressure, they want to go against it. And that pressure actually creates frustration. So in protection training, where we train dogs to make them actively aggressive so that we can control it, we use harnesses. Okay. So that can be another cause. If you switch from your e-collar back in July of 2019 to like a harness or whatever, and then gradually things have been kind of escalating from there, that can be a component.
What kind of collar do you recommend or to go on the leash?
The Dogtra. You already, the thing that, so my thing here is like you actually already have all the answers. You've just fallen off the wagon. Right? And she needs consistent rules and less affection. I'm picking up a lot of love and affection for your dog, which is great.
We spoil her a little bit.
But
A little. I'm on your side here. Yeah, she needs some tough love.
yeah, the way I show my affection for my dogs is I give them the structure and the rules, the boundaries, the consequences that they need. Okay. Not to say I don't pet them, not to say I don't, cuddle with them,
Mm-hmm.
but it's a balance of all these things. Okay. So you actually started off on the right foot. And, you had your son, and of course things changed. You no longer had the dog show, which is your source of consequence and all that stuff. Because I'm not taking what the daycares are saying and stuff. I really
Mm-hmm.
don't care about that. Okay, because there's only one other daycare in Chicago that kind of knows what they're doing, and I'm getting dogs from them, and essentially it's the same thing, that they don't know as much as I thought they did about what they're doing and running a daycare. Okay, so here, in terms of her anxiety with going to new places, I would just tell her cut the crap. Okay, because as a human, your first thought is, oh, she's anxious because we're taking her somewhere unfamiliar and we need to console her to help her relax. But another dog will just bite her and say, cut the crap. Okay, dogs don't explain things to each other. They don't pet each other and say, hey, it's okay, like we're just going to a new daycare. They don't do that.
So is that something you do verbally in a harsh tone, or is that something you do by just like yanking them on their collar? Like, what's the best way to communicate that to them?
So if you're going to use a pop on the collar, like you just mentioned, it would have to be a correctional collar, like a prong collar. You could also use your e-collar, right? Because so aversives are meant to stop things.
Yeah.
Okay, but e-collar and aversives with the dog training tools can also be used to teach things, right? So that's why Keleigh was taught how to sit and down and stuff with e-collar, right? But it's also meant to stop things. So if she's got her e-collar on and I'm taking somewhere new and she starts barking up a fit and I remote her at 25 or whatever, what I'm doing is I'm saying there's no need to be anxious and worked up, right? So yes, I know she could get better if I keep taking her there and she's having positive experiences, or I can just say, cut it out, okay? Because people put too much on the dog to make the right decisions, to kind of get over things, when really it's the human who should be guiding the dog into how they should feel, okay? So you would either pop her on a correctional collar, or use your dog trail to correct her and say, cut it out.
It's possible that we may need to get her dog trail refitted or re-examined, just because I noticed a couple times I've tried to put it back on just to like, inconsistently work with her on it, and I'll have it at like a really high level and just nothing, So I don't know if that means it's not fitted correctly now that she's grown.
The other thing is you have a Samoyed.
Yep.
That thick coat.
Yeah.
Is a pain to get through with e-collar.
So is it better to have one of those correctional collars then?
Because they're
like
so
the pronged ones?
They're so poofy.
Yeah.
Even with the prong collar, you don't get much across. So what you would need to do is, one, you would follow up with Maria and let her know like what model you have, because output is also a big part of getting through to the dog, because it has to get through all that fur.
Yeah.
But there's also a special adapter. I think it's called a wing adapter, which we could send you the info for, that is meant to get through dense coats like that.
Okay.
Now the problem with the wing adapter is since they're very small contacts to try to get through to the fur, is you lose power there, right? So you're going to go with, in my opinion, a higher powered collar to help compensate for the thick fur and to compensate for the adapter that you're going to have to use to get through to her. Okay. Now you could get her fitted and it ends up being too much power, which just means you're going to be lower on your collar. But it's like, I'd rather you get the largest collar and not have to worry about, are we going to have to exchange things and send it back and then wait longer and all that stuff, trying to find the appropriate collar, right? I just go with the highest powered one. We go with the special wing adapter, and then we figure out what her new levels are, and we're not having to worry about exchanging and returning things, trying to find the like exact fit for her. Does that make sense? Because all it means is more output means lower number. That's all it means. Less output means higher number for a bigger, denser coated dog. So in terms of like the reactivity on leash, that's just revisiting the heel command. Did she come to you knowing heel?
I don't know if she knows the word heel. I don't know if she knows the word heel.
Like a walking at your side command?
No.
No, our first Samoyed that we had trained was easier to train than her. She wasn't fast to pick up on stuff.
No, I think she's a good, I don't know that she's ever learned that one or that we've ever enforced that one, to be honest. Everyone says she's a smart dog and can do all the things. It's just, we certainly have not been consistent.
When you sent her to Emily?
Like 4, 5 months.
Yeah, she should have came to you knowing heel.
No, she does not know heel.
Right, so we need to teach heel in order to get to the reactivity. Okay, so walking at your side with no tension. So my style of heel is if I take 5 steps.
She never walks at our side with no tension ever.
Yeah, she's really difficult.
Yeah, that's part of the problem. So if I take 5 steps, dog takes 5 steps. I take 3 steps, dog takes 3 steps. I take 1 step, dog takes 1 step.
That sounds really nice.
Completely slack leash, and I don't care what the environment is. I don't care if you're at Busy Oz Park. I don't care if you're at PetSmart. I don't care if you're at Home Depot. At your hip with no tension. Okay, and it sounds like, wow, that's going to take a lot of work. It doesn't. Okay.
Sounds like
I had a client yesterday, their first class, and I'm going to take that clip and I'm going to put it up on my Instagram. But you see that exact thing happen. And I said, what we just did for that 10 to 15 minutes is what got you that level of focus. It's literally super simple, especially if you're using e-collar. Okay, e-collar is the most effective and efficient way to train. It's the only tool that can get you as close to 100% possible in reliable training, even in an emergency situation. Okay, so half the battle is me convincing people to use remote collar. You guys have actually already used it, which is good, so you're familiar with it. Unfortunately, in my opinion, we had a puppy, we had a dog come in for at 4 months for a board and train for 2 weeks. He left here knowing sit, stay down, come, place, heel. Okay, and he was halfway to off-leash reliability. The owner had to do the rest of the work. Okay, so age and all that stuff is not an excuse not to teach a puppy or doggy heel. We teach it immediately. If I have a 2-month-old puppy, they're learning heel immediately because it helps prevent and fix a majority of behavior problems. Okay, so I'm sorry that I'm just, I get frustrated because I get a lot of clients from other trainers who do board and trains and all this stuff. And I'm like, either they don't follow up with them and teach them what their dog learned, or it's a quick 30-minute session and they go, best of luck to you, and they don't follow up with the client, or they don't do anything to like the last few days before the dog is being picked up, or they don't cover heel, which is like the most important command. It's like, I had a client that said that it was the last thing that they covered in her training program with e-collar with their trainer. And with me, I'm like, it's the first thing I cover. It's the first class, almost always. Right now, there's an exception because it's so cold. We're teaching the place command so that people have something to work on inside. But the next time I tell them, like, we're going to have to cover heel because it sucks you're going to be outside, but that is the most important command that we need to teach. Okay.
Yeah, it would be amazing for her to be able to walk on a leash like that. Like she's always dragging us everywhere.
Yeah, and harness is part of that. Okay. No, you can keep her in the harness for now because it's just what you have. But we would have to teach that, of course, to address the reactivity stuff. Okay. Once we get that in her brain, the reactivity stuff on leash when you're walking her, the growling and all that should go away. My assumption is it's going to go away. If it doesn't go away, then I'll review with you how to correct that behavior so that she stops doing it. Okay, and this will be, of course, with the use of your e-call. In terms of the daycare stuff, unfortunately, what we do together would not help her at daycare because it's unstructured. Okay, so like, you know, we get dogs here and they might be rough players or whatever. And if we've trained them, we know we just pop them on the collar so that we can correct them if they're doing anything that we don't allow. You know, we don't, again, allow the free-for-all stuff. So in that component, that's kind of up to you what you do with her with the daycare stuff. But unless they're going to reinforce consequence or unless they're going to structure things themselves, it's a gamble on if or not it'll go away. Okay. I've had dogs in the past who did go to daycare who had issues. We did training and it did help the dog in daycare, even though we did nothing with the daycare. But I've also had dogs get worse. Okay. And my theory there is because the dog was getting discipline and structure in the home, it started to relate. Oh, daycare? Oh, I can do whatever I want. At home, I have to behave. So then they were exhibiting more behaviors at the daycare because they knew they could get away with more. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
Yeah, we just need to figure out some daytime solution for her because I'm assuming we're not going to be working at home forever, and she's got to have somewhere to go or someone to come
Yeah, and she
walk
needs
her or
that
something.
mental stimulation. Like she, you know, she's not a vegetable dog. She's a smart dog.
Yeah.
She's an active dog. So
she's active because you've made her active.
If she was at your daycare and you noticed her doing that activity, is that something you teach them not to do with other dogs? Yeah.
You correct them.
So Jory is under the assumption, and I guess sort of I am, that like Samoyeds are extremely active breeds, and like Jory's always said part of the problem she doesn't get enough exercise. I think she gets a lot of exercise, but like could she get by with less? I don't want her to get out of shape and stuff, but like our assumption was daycare is a good solution to get her sufficient exercise and let her run around, and then but what just your thoughts on that?
Okay, so
and when she's not going to daycare, she gets like 5 to 6 miles of walking in.
Jesus Christ. All right, so what seems like boundless energy is lack of limitations and boundaries and rules. Okay, so if I have a dog and I just got it, right? I don't have time to train right now. I just got it. I'm doing something first, and it's acting up. People go, "Oh, it's got a lot of energy. I'm gonna have to walk that dog," or I just correct it and say, "Don't do that." Okay, rules and boundaries are what teaches the dog to not keep into that state. Okay, so let's take kids for example. Let's take young children, let's say first graders. They show up to school, they go to the classroom, it's loud. They're talking, they're making friends, they're shoving things around, blah, 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 right? But then the bell rings. What do you think happens when the bell rings?
They'll get up and run.
Excuse me?
They'll get up and run out.
The morning bell.
Yeah, they sit down and behave, right?
Yeah, because the bell means discipline, right?
Yeah.
The bell means class has now started, right? So those kids still have the wants and like the needs to move and do all that stuff, but they understand that bell means, hey, if you do that after the bell, there's consequence. Maybe go to detention, maybe go to timeout, maybe we call your parents, blah, 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 right? So for Keleigh here, let's say you're sick, okay? And you can't do that 5 to 6 mile walk, and you can't take her to daycare, and you can't throw a ball for 90 minutes, okay? You're sick. Can't even get to your car.
Or I just don't have time.
Or you just don't have time. You got a baby,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Are you really going to just let her do that stuff? Or would you just say, cut the crap, consequence?
There's a difference of thought in the household right now as to that, but right now we've been giving her the exercise.
Right. But that's why I said you're making her active. I said that like 5 minutes ago. Yeah. I said she's active because you're making her active, right? And I'm not just trying to dissuade you not to exercise your dog. Absolutely do so, right? However, if you can't, don't feel guilty. You can correct your dog and say, look, I know you're not getting your walk today. You're not getting daycare. You're not getting your ball time, blah, 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 blah. But you still can't act the fool in the house. Okay? You can do that. It does not make you mean. That is a part of boundaries. It is healthy. Okay? This is why a lot of my clients have issues with their dogs because they're giving more and more and more and more, trying to tire the dog out. But you have to understand that dogs are not meant to be in a house. Dogs are meant to be out free. They're meant to hunt. They're meant to stalk. They're meant to catch their prey. They're meant to go without meals for a couple of days. They're meant to replicate and do all that stuff, right? That is exhausting, doing all that, right? But now she's in a house where she's guaranteed a meal every day, and she's not getting that level of activity, which is understandable because that's just not how life is. But you are providing what you can, that when you can't, you can tell her you still can't misbehave. Okay, does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So if you want to send her to daycare, she's fine to come here. We would evaluate her. We would and we would say like, hey, if we see behaviors, we have to correct it. Because we've had a couple of dogs come in who are behaviorally challenged or whatever you want to look at it as, and we said, look, we can have your dog here, right? However, we need to correct your dog. And they're like, no, you can't correct our dog because of our contract with our blah, 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 right? With our rescue and all that stuff. And I said, then we can't have your dog here because I don't care about your money. And this is after 2020 and during 2020 where I needed money. I was like, because it's going to throw off my harmony here, right? All the dogs here are on the same structure, on the same rules, or on the same boundaries. It would be unfair for us to favor your dogs just because you're a contract with someone else. It's not my problem.
Yeah, no, we want our dog to be a good citizen. I mean, I feel like that's in everyone's interest. Like it's in our interest when she comes back home. We want her to be a good citizen. So we want to fix that.
So we would just tell you this is what we saw. And like there may be some tension because we're a completely new place. We put rules to things, it makes dogs a little bit uncomfortable in the beginning because now there's rules. So it's not as fun as before. But as they keep coming, like two dogs actually took 20 visits here before they finally opened up to play. Okay, because the rules and the boundaries made them kind of wary of their decisions, which is good, right? Because them being wary of their decisions is why they're not making bad decisions. But it took them 20 visits before they finally opened up and said, oh, as long as we don't try to start any fights, as long as we don't like try to growl or lip curl or whatever, we can play. We're like, yes, you can, right? So we would evaluate her, we would tell you what we see, and then you go, okay, great, we're gonna keep bringing her back. And then we slowly build her up to the facility. Okay, it's not just here you go. We acclimate them, we take our time, try to make it as unstressful as possible. We earn the trust, but at the same time, if we see something we disagree with, we're gonna correct it. Okay, either with an e-collar, if you bring her with on one, or like a leash pop with a slip leash or whatever we have, but we're not going to let things get out of hand. Okay. So, but that's why the daycare stuff, I'm not even worried about. It's more so in the home stuff. Mm-hmm. Okay. Because the separation anxiety that you're like describing to me is just more nonsense.
Yeah. It's literally stressful for us to leave our house right now without her because it's like, what's she going to do?
Yeah. When she was a puppy, she chewed off our she literally chewed off like the wooding around the wood paneling around one of our windows. We had to have that and now like it's pretty standard to expect like some cardboard box somewhere that we forgot about is going to get chewed through.
Yeah, she makes it known that she's pissed, basically.
She is much more upset also when Jory leaves her alone than when I leave her alone. She's more attached to Jory, even though I give her more of the exercise, which is interesting.
The out of all the things that you've noted, the most difficult thing to fix is actually the separation anxiety. Okay.
And I should say Jory's also sweeter to her than I'm more harsh when she's doing crap, and I don't. She just really likes Jory a lot more than me. Not that she dislikes me, but.
So with the separation anxiety, because it happens when you're gone, is what makes it difficult. Mm-hmm. Okay. To address that, we'd have to change some things. Less unnecessary affection, less coddling, right? Less kind of rights within the home. Like if I sit on the couch and the dog just jumps up and goes and starts licking my face, that's a part of separation anxiety. But people welcome it because they enjoy it, right? But right there, so in my opinion, separation anxiety comes from the dog feeling as if they own the person. And you remove, and then when you take away what they own, it puts them under stress. Okay, so with your child, let's fast forward a couple of years. Let's say your child is 6 years old, okay? And you wake up and you find your child missing. How do you feel?
Not good.
Not good, right? Because you're like, oh my God, where do they go? And you know the world and the potential dangers there are to your child, correct?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say we switch that and your child wakes up and the both of you are gone. Okay. Now, I think we can agree that the child would be scared because they're alone,
Mm-hmm.
but they wouldn't be scared for you. They would be scared for themselves, right? Because you can take care of yourself. You're scared for your child because your child cannot take care of themselves.
Yeah.
You see that? That's kind of like the dog separation anxiety with the human scenario. Okay. And the more you allow her to just make decisions, especially decisions that involve your personal space or your intimate space, where she just jump on your lap and like she puts her paw on you and you pet her and all that stuff. All of that stuff is putting her above you. And it's making her feel as if she owns you. So then when you go without permission, we get stress. Okay.
Yeah, I mean that makes sense because when she's fine leaving us, it's just when we leave her, it's the problem.
And right now she's stressed out of her mind because my parents are here and I'm not letting her hang out with them while they're taking care of our kid and we're having this call. But she's hyperventilating right now. So
yeah, and then you're petting her though.
I'm just trying to keep her in place and not scratching the door. But
yeah,
maybe I should let go.
Let's talk about that, right?
Yep.
So you're petting her to keep her in place. I get it. So she's not scratching the door.
Yep.
But by petting her, you're actually telling her, yes, you should hyperventilate when you can't get to my parents or our parents.
So I just let go.
And then you let go. But then if she goes to scratch the door, what do you think you would do?
I'm going to yank her.
Apparently buzz her with that collar, right?
Yeah, you would correct. We would say, you're not going to do that. And I don't care how you feel, but you do not scratch the door as an outlet. It is unacceptable. So in the future, or actually, I'm not going to talk about I'll talk about my life growing up. I was raised in school. I was spanked. Okay. So like, let's say I didn't get a toy that I wanted at the store and I threw a tantrum. Guess what happened?
Yeah, in trouble. There were consequences.
Yeah, I got spanked. Maybe not at the store, but mom would say like, when we get home, we're getting spanked because you threw that fit for that toy that I told you couldn't have. Right. So she didn't say, oh, you're throwing a tantrum. Oh, okay, here. Let me give it to you just so you don't throw a tantrum. Right. Or take this piece of candy instead so you don't throw a tantrum. She was like, no, you throwing a tantrum for something that you can't have is unacceptable. You have to think of a different way to deal with that. And as a consequence, I'm going to spank you when we get home. Right. So there, she separated, right? And she's stressed or anxious or whatever because she can't get to what she wants. And she says, well, I'm going to scratch the door. And you say, no, sweetie, don't scratch the door. I'll pet you. I'll soothe you, right? You're telling her, yes, this is how you should feel, and I'll give you something. As opposed to correction, no, find a better way to deal with that. Okay. Yeah. And unfortunately, for dogs, we don't have communication to say, like, instead of scratching at the door, why don't you go lay down in the bed? Like, we can't say that and explain that to them like you would with a child, right? Instead of throwing a tantrum for the toy, how about you behave yourself and the next time maybe I'll consider it. Like a child can process that, right? For dogs, they have to actively try the behavior, be provided a consequence to learn, oh, that's not an option. So next time I'm not going to do that. Let me try lying on the bed instead. Oh, no correction for lying on the bed. I guess this is what I can do when I feel like this. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
So behavior is actually simpler than people think. It's super simple. If you don't want something, you correct it. Because if Keleigh didn't want something, she would correct it. Right? Yeah. So the world, unfortunately, is not logical anymore. And providing consequence and all that stuff is looked down upon. You know, but that's why a lot of dogs have issues. Because no one wants.
It's funny because we're much more disciplinarian with our kid about consequences than we are with their dog. So I guess it should be the same.
Yep. Think of your dog as a 3 to 4 year old child. You know, so like the problem is people look at their dog as if they're a baby a lot of times, and babies have no motor skills. My aunt, when she had her first, no, not her, like she had her second and third, they were twins, and she was carrying the baby, and she had an earring, and it ripped the earring out of her ear. She was very angry, but she couldn't do anything because it's a baby. As an adult, we would have been like, nope, shouldn't be wearing ears around the baby. right? Babies have no motor skills.
Mm-hmm.
A 3 to 4-year-old child is more aware of what they're doing, that we can hold them accountable for things. And then because we can hold them accountable, we can provide consequence and reward because they can do that math. Your dog's the same thing. At as young as 3 to 4 weeks, they start correcting and biting and nipping each other and creating hierarchy amongst themselves, right? So at 8 weeks, when you get a puppy, you can teach them what they can and can't do. They don't know right from wrong, but they do know what they can get away with and what they can't get away with. And that's all because of consequence.
Yep.
You know, another dog, even if it's a 2-month-old puppy, 2-month-old puppy or whatever, if the puppy's annoying them, they just nip and bite them. They don't ignore it because the puppy at that age is capable of learning, oh, I shouldn't crawl all over you because you will nip or bite me.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So a bulk of your problems is actually the absence of consequence. Okay. Because if obedience was the issue, other than to heal for the reactivity, you wouldn't be having problems. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Questions?
No, I mean, it feels
Sure.
like we have a lot of work to do, but I like that you feel like we can positively impact the situation.
Yeah, no, it's simple because remember, behaviors simply don't do that. The hardest part is the emotional component with the owner.
Yeah, and I think that part is hard because, you know, like when
That's
I get
on you, Jor.
he jumps on me and says hello, it's like, oh, my dog loves me. So it's hard to be like, get down. No.
Love is a human emotion.
Yep.
You know, and I'm not trying to burst your bubble, but you have to see your dog for a dog.
Yep.
Last night I did a consultation with a dog that bit an old lady on the ankle. Okay, punctured, got infected. It's not good. Now I think it's a fluke moment. Okay, compared from everything that they told me, I was like, I feel like this is a fluke moment. And there was also leash reactivity towards dogs and separation anxiety. And I said, and I could within the session, I saw a lot of coddling, a lot of the affection from the owner to the dog, and like this is blatant, right? And I was like, that's a huge part of the problem. And I said, in order to get over these issues of reactivity and separation anxiety, and preventing this from happening to another person, we're gonna have to start changing things. And it would, like, you should have seen, like, their hearts just fell, right? And I'm like, that's gonna be the problem.
Yep.
Is just that emotional attachment component. People think their dogs need it. Dogs don't need companionship. Humans get dogs for companionship, but dogs don't need companionship.
I'm just curious, what are your thoughts on like the proper amount of activity for a dog, like a 3-year-old Samoyed,
What you can
to
do
just keep them in shape? I just want her to be healthy and not.
An hour per day is my general rule.
Okay. Well, on days she doesn't go to daycare, Jordan, what do you think? I'm out with her 2.5 to 3 hours.
I just think this is more of like a behavioral consult, though, Steve. Like we can work out the rest of it. Like how much we walk her is a totally
So my advice for activity
yeah,
is, because you said it earlier, and I was actually going to touch on this, is I always tell everybody, do with your dog what you can do forever. Okay? If you want to do it. So what happened was you created these expectations, and then you had a baby. And now you can't meet those expectations, but your dog is still up here. Does that make sense? So, and I'm not trying to shame you or anything, but that's how that math worked out.
Yep.
So now it's simple. It's just like, hey, Keleigh, we can't do that anymore. And no, you're not going to scratch the door because you can't do that, right? We expect you to still behave, but we will give you what we can in terms of exercise. So like early on in my career, I had some boarding trains and dogs boarding with me. Plus I had 5 dogs of my own. So I think I had about 12 dogs in my home, and I got the flu. Okay. I couldn't work with the dogs. I was bedridden. I was bad. Okay. But they all were in my room, calm, laying down, just hanging out, relaxing. And as soon as I was back on my feet, we went back to our usual routine where I would walk the dogs for an hour. They would play in the yard and all that stuff. But for that week, because I could not do it, I didn't. And had they got out of line, I would have simply corrected them and said, like, nope, today you're not going to be all worked up just because we didn't get our walk. You're still going to behave yourself. Okay?
Yep.
So, but my general rule is an hour per day.
And what would if working with you entail if you want to take on Keleigh for some touch-up work, which she needs a lot of?
Are you trying to do a board and train, or are you trying to do in person?
I'll leave it to Jory. What do you recommend?
What do you think would be best in terms of getting her?
Yeah.
She's 3. I mean, my biggest concern is that she's 3, so we've obviously let these problems fester. So what is realistic in terms of getting results?
It's and I'll just add one more thing. It's not that we're cost insensitive, but like we care much more about the outcome that we get with her than the cost, because like we need this as an investment in being able to have her the next 9-10 years. And right now, like it's just,
like right now,
it's yeah.
Really, it's like at the point
she's becoming to the point where like we can't do our job. Like I need to be able to work adequately. I can't do that if like she has problems at daycare, and I so.
Yeah. So in my opinion, in person is always best, because I'm coaching you and I'm teaching you to train your dog and discipline your dog.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And I don't touch the dog anymore. We're present with each other. I give you some exercises. I give you some homework. I see you in a week. Okay. And from what I'm hearing from your case, because the daycare stuff is not a factor, it's the in-home stuff that I care about. Okay. Is this, to me, sounds like we should get a turnaround within 1 to 2 classes. Okay. Because your problem is simpler than you think. Okay, because the bulk of the problems you were bringing up were from daycare. Other than the separation anxiety and the light reactivity during the walks, and like the bark, like I know it seems like a lot, but really it's super simple. It's just a few things.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? It's just consequence for things that we don't want, and then she needs to learn heal. That's like the core of what I'm seeing here. Okay, so working with me in person takes longer, but you're gonna pull out a wealth of information that you will carry with you for your life and your dog's life. Okay. If you do like a daycare and train, we already know how to fix this stuff. Within the first day, it's going to be done. Okay. With us, the problem is we don't have the problem.
Yep.
You have the problem. Right. So in person would be your best bet to get the most out of your investment. Plus, you need to learn how to use the e-collar in the way that we use it, and it's different from the way that Emily uses it. Okay. And I would put you around 6 classes for your issue. Okay. 2 classes to cover the heel, a 3rd class maybe for the reactivity stuff, seeing how that progresses. A 4th class on how we address behavior and discipline via the e-collar. And the last thing would be most likely, and well, the separation anxiety stuff, we'll have to see how that pans out. Okay, so because separation anxiety is the hardest thing that you have here. We may have to revisit crate training, and I read about the whole crate thing and everything like that. Or possibly with the structure itself, it may alleviate the issues within the home, but I won't know.
At this point with a toddler, like it would be even hard to find a place to put a crate just because we live in the city and
we could always put a crate in the house drawer, even if it looks
Oh.
unseemly.
They make nice crates now with like wood and stuff that are more pleasing to the eye, if that's one thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's the biggest issue, but
yeah, what I would do is play it by ear. 2 classes on the heel. What does that fix? Okay. That's always the first thing that we do. 2 classes on heel. What does it fix? Okay, cool. Reactivity's gone. Great. Let's start targeting separation anxiety. Okay. We start targeting that. Maybe that's a class or 2. Okay, great. What else are we struggling with? That was pretty much it. Okay, we have 2 classes. How about we cover recall with your dog, which is come when called? Because that's like one of the most important things that you can teach your dog is off-leash recall. Okay. Now, do bear in mind that I'm teaching you to train your dog. So you will have to invest time. Now, the time that you invest is simply how you live your life with your dog. If you walk Keleigh 3 times a day for 20 minutes, then each of those 20-minute walks, you're doing your training. Okay. I call myself like the lazy man's dog trainer, because once we teach the skill, I tell people just start training as they live their life with their dog. Okay. The hardest thing here, of course, is the separation anxiety. If that is still a problem, what I would most likely do is just pop a bark collar on her, okay, which would correct her when she starts to whine or bark or get vocal. And with the presence of the bark collar, because now there's threat of consequence, it keeps dogs chill. Okay. So like I had a really bad case where the dog was like bending the bars and shrieking like he was dying.
She does that.
Yeah.
She's doing that right now because she's sitting there doing that because she can hear my parents out there.
Yeah. So it took me about 5 minutes to correct that problem. Okay. But I didn't have any emotional attachment to that dog. And then we had to put a bar collar on him. But the presence of the bar collar, he would go in the kennel, lay down and curl up into a donut, fall asleep. Okay, without that bar collar, he would try to pull at the bars and stuff. Now, not as bad, but he would still try. So, which leads me to my next thing, because people always ask, when does the collar go away? And in my book, when you need it, it doesn't. So that means when you walk Keleigh out for those walks and stuff, the collar is going to be present. It doesn't mean that you're always using it. It just means that it's present because the presence of it puts her in a different state of mind. Okay. I liken the e-collar to a cop on a collar. So just like with people, if we see cops around while we're driving on the expressway, we alter our speed, we slow down a bit because we know we don't want to get a ticket. But typically when we don't see the squad car anymore, people speed up and they go past that speed limit, right? So the presence of authority alters our behavior. It's the same thing for Keleigh. Think of the e-collar as an authority, right? And I want to give you other tools to empower yourself. But definitely when we're outside in an uncontrolled environment, because the world is, anything can happen, you want to know that you have control. When it comes to being within the home, the worst case scenario would be when you leave, Keleigh may need a bark collar on days that she can't go to daycare or whatever, and you need to just leave for an hour and come back and not have to worry about is she going to be destructive. Okay. The problem is you guys have a Samoyed, and we're going to have to figure out how we would get a collar that's going to keep consistent contact in order to correct her in case she barks. Okay. Because of that thick, dense fur. So like Samoyeds, Huskies, Pomeranians, they're difficult to train because they're so fluffy. Okay. They may look very pretty and beautiful, but they're difficult because of that factor. Okay. So my advice to you is in person, 6 classes. Okay. If you wanted to do a daycare and train, that's fine as well. The way that works is you would bring her in like a regular daycare day. When she's here, she would train with us. Okay. After she's had 5 days with us, then you can schedule your follow-up and I would educate you on everything you need to know. We also create a video for you. Okay. And we call it the explanatory sessions. And we would teach everything again. I know she knows sit down and some other thing, I think it was, but we make a video teaching or us approaching every command or every behavior the first time. So you can see Keleigh learning with us for the first time. And my trainer explains everything. And you watch that video. After you watch that video, you begin applying everything. Once you go a couple of weeks or whatever, and you're like, okay, we were not getting these concepts and we know these, but we don't know these, you would schedule a follow-up, you would come in, and then I help you kind of close the gap on the things that you didn't really catch, okay? The pros and cons, in person takes longer, right? But you learn a lot more. With the daycare and train or a board and train option, we get it done a lot faster, but you're not seeing, you're not getting the hands-on work so that you're not learning as much.
What hours do you do for in person?
My hours?
Yeah, if we wanted to do okay.
Yeah, because typically I'm evenings and weekends because people work 9 to 5.
Yeah.
But I pretty much work almost all the time.
Okay. Jory, do you have any thoughts in terms of next steps?
So would it be possible to do like a combination? Because my biggest concern right now is that we have a toddler, and so childcare is tough. Like I do think it would be beneficial for us both to be able to attend in person and learn from you so that we're consistently doing this at home.
Yep.
But I also want the problem fixed. And we have to be able to get childcare for our toddler while we attend. So would it be possible to do like a combination? And would that be?
Well, I mean, do you recommend both of us showing up if we do in person? Yeah. Is that the best way to do it?
The most important class would be the first and second class, most likely.
Okay.
Okay.
So yeah, so he's at daycare 8 to 5, and then
Oh, for your child, or
yeah.
yeah.
So we just would need to he would need to have childcare for us both to attend in person, which I think we both do need to attend. It seems like that.
Yeah. And if you're doing a daytime like that, it's much easier to get you in the schedule.
Okay.
Because most people are getting 9 to 5.
Okay.
Right. So if that works for you, then that works out really well. But yes, you can do you can even do training just with like standard daycare here. Okay, because you already have the tool. So even though we've not done training with her, we know how to use the tool that we can bring her to daycare, just standard daycare, and we can like just do stuff. In the meantime, as you try to figure out everything else, don't feel like you have to do daycare and train with the training in person. I leave that up to you, because I think if you're going to do in person, you're going to get a lot of wealth of knowledge, and it's really simple to understand.
I'd be all for in person if it works for our schedule best. We'll need to talk to the two of us. And then, do you recommend she continues going to Rockstar while she's getting trained, or should we take like a month off from them?
You could do whatever you like.
Okay.
Like that's your. It's not going to help or hurt what we do.
Okay.
I collar fitted for her.
I'm sorry?
How do we figure out the correct collar that we need for her?
Maria would send you that information, but the collar I would put her on is the Dog Trail Black Edition. And we'd have to get the wings most likely, or some kind of adapter to help with getting contact to that thick fur. That's going to be also one of the more harder things to do, is just consistent contact. Okay. But we'll help you figure that out.
Next step, should we just get back to you email, or what's the best way to figure out the right path forward?
If you know that you're all up for it, you can just turn around and email Maria and say, sign us up for 6 classes or whatever you want to do. All our pricings and stuff are on my website. You just go to Obedience, or you can go to Daycare and Train, whatever, to like look at your options. And then Maria would help you with getting the contract, getting invoiced, getting the right equipment, and then getting you scheduled as well.
Great. Okay. Jory, any other questions?
No, I think we should figure out, just because I want
to. We'll figure it out. I'd be all up for doing in person, but Jory's schedule is more hectic than mine, so we'll need to figure out.
I definitely want that to be a component of it, but I'm just wondering if we need to do some immediate remedial, because I just am losing.
No, I understand. Yeah, so just talk to Maria, and then she'll get you and then just let you know, like, we have a ton, like I had like 8 people sign up in the past week for training, and we have a bunch of consultations coming through. So definitely I would recommend reaching out to her and just say like, hey, sign us up for whatever you want. And then it'll just kind of help expedite the process a little bit. But she will get back to you. But if there's a little bit of a delay, it's because we have so many requests coming through right now.
Okay, we'll figure it out and get back to you soon. Thanks for your time this morning.
Thank you. If you have any other questions, let us know. Okay?
Okay. Awesome.
Okay. Thanks so much.
All right.
Take care. Have a good day.